All right, so today we're diving into something I think we've all thought about at one point or another.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How to make English conversations a little less, well, a little less painful,
Definitely.
more engaging, more effortless.
Smooth.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a nice, smooth sailing conversation.
And we're not just talking about surface level stuff here.
No, no, no.
We're going deep with this source, effortless English conversations.
That's great.
So we can all really level up our communication game.
Because let's be real, sometimes those tips like just be yourself or relax, they're not really cutting it.
I know, it's like,
Yeah.
thanks. I'll just relax my way into fluency. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, exactly.
So what we're doing is dissecting this source to pull out those golden nuggets of wisdom
Oh, yeah.
that you can actually use, whether you're networking or making friends or just trying to survive a party without wanting to hide in the corner.
Absolutely. And, the first point might surprise you a little bit.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
It's all about shifting your focus.
Yeah.
From being interesting to being interested.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Isn't the goal to be like the most interesting person in the room?
Well, think about it for a second. The people you're really drawn to, the best conversationalists, the ones everyone wants to talk to,
Yeah.
they're rarely the ones who are dominating the conversation.
Okay.
They're the ones who are masters at making you feel like the most interesting person.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Right.
Okay, so I see where you're going with this, but how do you actually do that?
Yeah.
Is it like a Jedi mind trick?
Not quite a Jedi mind trick,
Okay.
but it really comes down to this basic human need that we all have.
Okay.
We want to feel validated.
Yes.
We crave that sense of being heard and understood.
100%.
And when someone genuinely listens to us
Yeah.
and asks us insightful questions,
Uh-huh.
it makes us feel valued.
Okay, so it's not about like showing off all your achievements or
Right.
trying to be like the life of the party. It's about making the other person feel like they are.
You got it. And this is universal, by the way.
Oh, really?
This isn't just an English language thing.
Interesting.
It applies to conversations in any language
That makes sense.
because it's tapping into that human need.
Yeah, this reminds me of something I read about active listening.
Yes.
It's like you're not just passively hearing the words, but you're really engaged.
Right.
You're asking clarifying questions. You're showing that you're absorbing what they're saying.
100% you're present.
Yeah.
And that actually leads perfectly into the next point from this source,
Okay.
which is the power of asking great questions.
Ooh.
But not just any questions.
Okay.
We're talking about those open-ended conversation starters, the kind that unlock a treasure trove of insights and stories.
Okay, because let's be real.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel like they're being interrogated with a bunch of yes or no questions.
No, it's like a bad job interview.
Right. Exactly.
So instead of asking someone,
Yeah.
do you like your job?
Ooh.
Which, let's be honest, is probably going to get you a one-word answer.
Pretty much, yeah.
Imagine asking them, what's something about your work that most people wouldn't expect?
Oh, I like that.
Right?
It's so much more inviting.
It is.
And it gives them a chance to share something unique about themselves.
Exactly. And that's what makes conversations engaging.
Yeah.
You go beyond the surface level. You start to uncover those little hidden gems.
Okay, so I'm wondering, is there like a psychological reason why this type of question works so well?
There is. Absolutely.
Tell me more.
Research has shown that open-ended questions actually activate a part of our brain
Really?
that's associated with self-reflection and storytelling.
Wow.
So you're actually encouraging the other person to think more deeply
Interesting.
and share more of themselves.
So it's not just about getting them to talk more. It's about getting a more thoughtful response.
Exactly. And you'll notice the source gives us a really simple trick for crafting these kinds of questions.
Oh, I love a good trick.
So easy.
Tell me.
Instead of starting your questions with, are you,
Okay.
try flipping it
Uh-huh.
and use what, how, or why.
Oh, that's such a subtle shift. But it can make a big difference.
It really can.
Okay, so for example, instead of, do you like to travel?
Right.
You could ask, what's the most fascinating place you've ever been?
Ooh, I love that.
Right.
Okay.
Or what kind of travel experience are you, like, craving right now?
Yes,
Wow.
exactly. You're getting them to think back to those memories.
I am inspired.
Good.
I'm going to up my question game.
I love it.
But, okay, so what about finding common ground?
Yeah.
Is that something that we should be actively trying to do in a conversation?
The source does touch on this,
Okay.
but they caution against forcing it.
Okay.
It's not about desperately trying to find shared interests.
I got it.
It's more about letting those connections kind of unfold naturally.
Yeah, because nobody likes that feeling when you can tell someone's trying too hard.
Oh, yeah, it's so inauthentic. But the beauty of those open-ended questions is that they often organically lead to those moments of connection.
Okay.
So, for instance, imagine asking someone,
Yeah.
what's something you wish you had more time for?
Ooh, that is good.
Right? It could be a hidden passion. It could be something you never expected.
Yeah.
And they might mention something that you're also into.
Right.
And boom, suddenly you have that point of common ground.
Yes. It's like when you meet someone and you're both obsessed with the same, like, obscure band.
Exactly.
It's instant bonding.
That instant connection.
I see what you mean.
And the source really emphasizes that even those small points of common ground,
Yeah.
they can make a conversation feel so much smoother and more enjoyable
For both people.
for both people.
Yeah, it's like that aha moment.
Yes.
Where you're like, oh, we're not so different after all.
We get each other.
Exactly. And speaking of those aha moments,
Okay.
the source dives into something I think a lot of people struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they're learning a new language.
Yeah.
Those awkward silences.
Oh, the silence.
Don't even get me started. It's like my brain just freezes up and I
Whoa.
start sweating.
Yeah.
Like, did I do something wrong?
We've all been there.
Is it me?
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Silence isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Wait, really?
In fact, the source actually reframes silence
Okay.
as a valuable tool
Mm.
for deeper connection.
Hold on. How can silence be a good thing?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Sometimes silence is actually a sign of active listening.
Oh, that's interesting.
The other person might be taking a moment to process what you said,
Mhm.
or maybe they're carefully thinking about their response.
Okay.
So instead of panicking and trying to fill every little gap,
Yeah.
you can view it as an opportunity
Okay.
for them to contribute their own thoughts and ideas.
So instead of just like blurting out whatever comes to mind,
Right.
I should just take a breath and use those silences to actually think about what they said.
Exactly. And the source gives some good tips for navigating those pauses gracefully.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Instead of just saying the first thing that pops in your head,
Yeah.
take a beat and think back to what the other person just shared.
Okay.
Maybe you say something like, that's fascinating. I'd love to hear more about that.
Ooh.
Or that reminds me of something I read recently about,
Oh, I like that. It shows you're engaged.
you're present.
Yeah, even in those moments of quiet.
Exactly. It's about shifting your perspective.
Yeah.
Seeing those silences as opportunities for a deeper connection.
Not as like threats to the conversation.
Not at all.
I like that.
Embrace the silence.
Okay, so what about those times, though, when I feel like I'm rambling on and on?
Oh, yeah, we've all been there.
How do I know when to stop and give the other person a chance to talk?
Great question. And that brings us to another key point from the source.
Okay.
The art of keeping your responses short and clear.
Oh, man. I am so guilty of oversharing,
Me too.
especially when I'm nervous.
Especially when you're nervous or excited.
It's like word vomit, but with extra awkward pauses
We've all been there.
and unnecessary detail.
Yes, but the key here is balance.
Okay.
You want to share enough to keep things engaging, but also leave space for the other person to contribute.
So it's not about just like saying as little as possible.
No.
It's about being mindful of how much I'm talking.
Exactly. It's about sharing the conversational airtime.
Okay, I like that analogy.
And the source uses this great example of someone talking about their love of yoga.
Oh, yeah.
They can go on and on about their favorite poses, their whole yoga journey,
Oh, yeah. I can see it now.
their home practice routine.
Like you ask a simple question and you're suddenly trapped in a 20-minute monologue about downward-facing dog.
Exactly, and the benefits of hot yoga.
Right.
But instead, imagine if they just said, I love yoga too. It's my go-to for stress relief. What about you? Have you ever tried it?
Okay. That's so much better.
Right.
It's concise, it's personal,
Uh-huh.
but it also invites me into the conversation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's about finding that sweet spot
Yeah.
where you're contributing but not dominating.
This makes me think about all those times I've been in conversations where the other person just talks and talks.
And talks.
And I'm like just waiting for a chance to jump in.
It's exhausting.
It is. It's so exhausting.
And that's why this principle is so important.
Yeah.
Those concise responses not only prevent the conversation from becoming one-sided, but they also show respect for the other person's time.
Right. It's like that unspoken agreement that a conversation is a shared experience.
Exactly. It's a dance.
Back and forth.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
So by mastering those concise responses, you create a more balanced and enjoyable dynamic for everyone.
I love that.
It's a win-win.
Okay, this is all great advice.
That's it.
But what about those times when I need to wrap things up?
Oh, yeah.
How do I gracefully exit a conversation without it being awkward or abrupt?
Such a good question. And thankfully, the source has some really helpful tips for this too.
Lay it on me.
So it's all about having a few go-to phrases
Okay.
that signal your intention to end the conversation,
Uh-huh.
but in a polite and friendly way.
Gotcha. So instead of just being like, well, gotta go and running away,
Yeah,
I can use a phrase that shows I appreciate the conversation,
exactly.
but that, I need to move on.
And maybe even leaves the door open for future interaction.
All right. Okay. Give me some examples.
You could say something as simple as, "It was so nice chatting with you. I really enjoyed hearing about."
Okay.
Or, "This was really fun. Let's continue this conversation another time."
I love those. They sound so sincere.
Right?
Doesn't sound like I'm just trying to escape.
Not at all.
Okay. What about if I really do need to make a quick exit?
Yeah, then you can be a bit more direct.
Okay.
Something like, "I need to get going, but
Yeah.
it was lovely talking with you."
Perfect. Okay. Those are all super helpful.
Good.
I'm going to add those to my conversational toolbox.
I love it.
But before we move on, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on small talk?
Ooh, small talk.
Is it a necessary evil? Or can it actually be a valuable part of social interaction?
That is a fantastic question.
Right.
And one that deserves its own deep dive.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we unpack the source's wisdom on the art of small talk.
Okay, so we left off talking about the sometimes dreaded, sometimes delightful world of small talk.
Oh yeah, small talk.
It can feel like navigating a social minefield sometimes.
You're not alone.
Right.
It's something we all grapple with.
Okay, good down.
And this source tackles it head on,
Okay.
using that classic question.
Yeah.
How was your weekend, as an example?
Oh, yeah, that one.
It seems simple enough,
Uh-huh.
but it can be a bit of a conversational trap.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Do you give a one-word answer?
Yeah.
You launch into a whole story? Do you
Mhm.
try to steer it towards something deeper?
You never know.
It's like, what are they looking for here?
And that's the thing we often can't tell. If the person's just being polite or if they actually want to know
Yeah,
about our Netflix binge and, grocery shopping.
totally. So how do we crack the code?
Well, the source points out something we often miss.
Okay.
Body language
Oh, interesting.
and tone of voice.
Right.
Think about it.
Okay.
Are they making eye contact? Are they leaning in?
Yeah.
Or are they kind of distracted looking for an escape route?
I see. So it's about reading those subtle cues
Exactly.
to figure out how much they actually care.
Yes. And if you sense they're genuinely curious,
Okay.
then you can share a bit more.
Huh.
But even then,
Yeah.
the source advises against like a play-by-play of your entire weekend.
Right. Don't give them a whole novel.
No, just highlight one or two interesting things.
Okay.
Enough to spark a connection,
Right.
but not overwhelm them.
Quality over quantity.
Yes. Even in small talk.
I like it.
Like a good movie trailer. Just enough to hook you.
Right. Not the whole plot.
Exactly.
I love that analogy.
So instead of saying, "My weekend was fine,"
Yeah.
you could say something like, "My weekend was great. I finally checked out that new bookstore downtown. Have you been?"
Oh, I like that.
Right.
It's specific,
Uh-huh.
but it's also inviting them in
Exactly.
to share their own experiences.
Well, they might tell you about their favorite bookstore, or maybe they're more into art,
Right.
and they want to tell you about the gallery next door.
Oh, that's a good point. So it's like you're planting those seeds.
You're planting seeds for further conversation.
But what if I actually did have a boring weekend?
Oh, yeah.
Like laundry errands, the usual.
Mm.
Do I have to pretend I was out, like, living it up?
No, not at all.
Okay.
The source is all about authenticity.
Okay.
You could say something like, "It was pretty low-key, just what I needed.
Yeah.
Lots of reading and relaxing.
Uh-huh.
How about you?"
Ooh. I like that it's honest, but it still keeps the conversation flowing.
Exactly.
And sometimes those chill weekends are the best anyway.
Sometimes those are exactly what we need.
Right.
You don't need to have climbed a mountain or won a karaoke contest
Exact.
to be an interesting person.
Right. Sometimes those quiet experiences are more relatable anyway.
They are.
This is making me realize small talk isn't just about filling the silence.
Right.
It's like a gateway to a deeper connection.
if you do it right.
Exactly.
And the source takes it a step further,
Okay.
talking about how small talk can actually be a way to practice those active listening skills.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I usually think of small talk as being pretty superficial.
Right.
But I guess even those brief exchanges can be opportunities to connect.
They can if you approach them with the right mindset.
So it's less about the topic itself
Mm-hmm.
and more about how you engage with the other person.
Exactly. Even if you're just talking about the weather,
Uh-huh.
you can still show genuine interest,
Okay.
ask follow-up questions,
Yeah.
and make the other person feel heard.
So you can bring those same skills of active listening and asking engaging questions
Yes.
to those seemingly mundane conversations.
To any conversation, really.
I like it.
And that's what elevates small talk.
Yeah.
From something we just endure to
Right.
something we can actually enjoy.
It even used to build relationships.
Absolutely.
Wow. Mind officially blown.
Good. Love it.
Small talk as a relationship building tool.
It's powerful stuff.
I never thought I'd see the day.
But it all ties back to those core principles
Right.
of being interested, asking those great questions,
Being present.
and making the other person feel valued.
But this leads me to something else the source talks about.
Okay.
Handling those moments when you disagree with someone,
Oh, yeah.
especially on topics that can get a little heated.
Yeah, that can be tough.
All right, how do you navigate that conversational minefield?
That's where things can get really tricky.
Right.
Especially if you're worried about offending someone or like damaging the rapport you've built.
Totally. So we're back, and now we're getting into some real nitty-gritty stuff.
The good stuff.
All right, how to handle those conversations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where you and the other person just don't see eye to eye.
Yeah. Those can be tricky.
Especially in a language you're still learning.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like double the pressure.
Right.
But this source has some good insights.
Oh, yeah. Some really helpful strategies.
Okay, so
Yeah.
because let's be honest, sometimes it's just easier to avoid those topics altogether.
Yeah. I think we've all been there.
Right. But that doesn't really help us connect with people
No, not real.
or have those meaningful conversations.
Exactly. And this source encourages us to actually lean into those moments of potential friction.
Really?
Yeah, instead of shying away.
Okay, but how do you do that?
Well, they emphasize the importance of approaching these conversations with a genuine curiosity
Okay.
rather than getting defensive or judgmental.
So instead of like going into battle mode,
Right.
I should try to see it as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. Be curious about their perspective.
That makes sense in theory,
Mm.
but how do you actually do that when you feel strongly about something? Right, it's easy to get caught up in the emotions
Totally.
and forget about being curious.
I get it. But the source has some practical tips for this.
Okay, I'm all ears.
One thing they suggest is using phrases that show you're trying to understand the other person's point of view,
Okay,
even if you don't agree with it.
got it. Like what kind of phrases?
Things like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Okay.
Or, that's an interesting perspective. I could see what you mean.
Ooh, I like those.
Yeah.
It's like you're acknowledging their viewpoint
Mm.
without necessarily saying you agree with them.
Exactly. Keeps the conversation open,
Yeah,
respectful.
and less likely to turn into an argument.
Right. It helps de-escalate the tension.
Instead of feeling like we're in a verbal boxing match,
Got it.
it's more like we're having a dialogue.
Exactly. A collaborative conversation.
I imagine that can also make the other person feel more heard,
Absolutely.
which is key, right?
Yeah. When someone feels understood,
Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to be open to your perspective as well.
So it's a win-win.
Exactly.
Okay, so once you've acknowledged their perspective,
Mm-hmm.
how do you bring in your own thoughts?
The source suggests adding in your own experience
Okay.
by saying something like, for me, I tend to think about it more like,
Well, that's a good one.
right.
It's not dismissive,
No.
but it allows you to share your own view.
Exactly.
Okay, this is all reminding me of that idea we talked about earlier.
Right.
Being interested, not just interesting.
Yes.
Even when you disagree with someone, you can still learn from their perspective.
If you're open to it.
Right.
And honestly, sometimes those disagreements
Yeah,
lead to the most interesting conversations.
that's a good point.
The ones that challenge our thinking.
Right. And broaden our understanding.
You got it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into effortless English conversations,
Yeah.
what's the one big takeaway you hope people walk away with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that becoming a more confident communicator, it's a journey,
Okay.
not a destination.
It's not like you wake up one day and you're suddenly fluent
Right, exactly.
and amazing at conversations.
There's no magic formula.
Okay.
But with practice,
Yeah.
paying attention to those subtle cues,
Ah.
approaching conversations with that genuine curiosity,
Yeah.
you can start creating those deeper connections.
And navigate those tricky situations.
Exactly, and give yourself some grace along the way.
Right. Because we're all human.
We all make mistakes. We stumble over our words.
It's all part of the process.
It is.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Beautifully said.
So keep showing up, keep practicing.
Keep pushing yourself out of that comfort zone.
Right. And who knows, maybe that next awkward silence
Or disagreement.
will lead to an amazing conversation.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day today,
Mm-hmm.
think about which of these strategies you can try out in your next conversation.
That's your challenge.
And let us know how it goes.
Share your experiences with us on social media.
We'd love to hear from you.
We would.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.